Well, good afternoon. I thank the participants for being here. We have a follow-up meeting this afternoon with Opt-In, which is our opportunity initiative. That it's an ongoing regional planning effort that the tribe's been asked to be involved in, and I was asked to be the representative on behalf of the tribe. So, Ben, if you will, I want you to introduce the team that you're with. Also I want to introduce our staff before you begin, and I think some of what you say then will lead into why we've invited certain participants here this afternoon. So if you will, Ben.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Vice Chief. And thanks for those of you who were able to make this meeting this morning. This is our third or fourth meeting as a group meeting. We did a presentation before the council early on when we first started the project, and then thanks to the Vice Chief, we've had regular meetings over in the boundary over the last few months and leading up to this meeting, and we'll have at least a couple more before we end our project at the end of May. My name is Ben Brown. I'm the Communications Director for the Opt-In Initiative, Southwestern North Carolina. Here with me today is Bill Tennell from Tennell Spangler Walsh in Atlanta, is the lead team for our 25-member Opt-In consulting team. We have members on our team from all different levels of expertise, dealing with economic development, natural resource planning, transportation planning, and communications. Stacy Guffey from Macon County he and I work together on the outreach and communications aspect of the project. Chief, do you want to introduce the folks here before I'll get into a longer explanation of what we're up to?
I will. I'll just ask each one of you to introduce yourself and which program you're representing today, please. Trina.
Good afternoon. My name is Trina Al. I'm with the Public Health and Human Services Services Division, and I'm the business director for that program.
Ben, I'm Russ Townsend. I'm the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the Eastern Band, and I'll be here primarily to address cultural issues, archaeological issues, things of that nature.
Perry Shell, Tribal Council Representative, Bico Community, and appreciate being invited here today. I hadn't been at the previous, I was at the presentation you did to council, and but I hadn't been involved in the other meetings, and looking forward to the discussion today.
Afternoon, I'm Josh Parker, Transportation Planner with Cherokee DOT.
I'm Barrick Myers, the manager, Cherokee Department of Transportation.
Max Myers, Chief of Staff to Principal Chief Michelle Hicks.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm Larry Blythe, Vice Chief. We've had several meetings that I've attended throughout the region, not just here in Cherokee, but specifically in Graham County as it relates to transportation, those issues. Cherokee County, I was unable to attend that one, but some of our tribal staff did attend. But these have been carried out in each county, and Ben, probably for the public's information, the focus of Opt-In, just briefly for a minute or two, remind us again, you know, this has been an ongoing 5 to 6 month effort to this point. A couple more months to go, a couple more meetings to go. But if you will, just in a nutshell, give us just a brief overview, and then we'll get into the agenda, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Opt-In is a project that's overseen by the Southwestern Commission Council of Governments, which represents the 7 western counties in North Carolina. It's a regional planning and organization that's very similar to other kinds of metropolitan planning organizations, rural planning organizations around the country. The Southwestern Commission issued in 2012 a request for proposals for a consulting team to help establish a foundation for long-term decision-making in the region, a consulting team that would address three principal categories, one being the all-important transportation policies of the region, because roads, highways, other kinds of transportation issues cross jurisdictional boundaries, and so therefore they necessitate a kind of a regional perspective. Also, because of where we live in the mountains, these 3,000 square miles, half of which are controlled by the federal government or the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, it's very important to think about the kind of natural and cultural resources. So that's the second category of concern for long-term decision-making, the natural and cultural resources. And the other major concern of interest to everyone is long-term economic development, including tourism development in the region. So our team, which won the contract for undertaking this 15-month project to lay a foundation for long-term decision-making, that is a regional vision for the region. We got started in earnest in 2013, and we'll wrap our entire project at the end of May of this year, 2014. Because we understand that the difficulties in our region of folks traveling long distances to go to meetings, we designed our process from the very beginning to go to where people were. So we've done over 100 one-on-one meetings and small group meetings with folks, so we can make sure that we're listening to some of the major concerns of leaders and citizens in the region, including in the Eastern Band. And we have a leadership council that includes not only you, the vice chief, but also commission members from the boards of county commissioners in the region, major nonprofits, and business people in the region. So that's sort of our steering committee of leadership council members, so to keep us on task. And we meet with them about once every month to 6 weeks to make sure that we're moving towards the kind of goals we set. Then we have also done, once we've gained some of the information from our research and our individual one-on-one meetings and group meetings, we've held 2 rounds of community workshops in the 7 counties. The first round was in the fall of last year, and we're just wrapping up the second round now. And this meeting is part of that second round of community workshops in the region. And what we did in the first round was establish certain kinds of goals. We just identified the big, broad goals of the region. We'll talk a little bit more about those in a couple of minutes. And then in the second round, we've proposed some scenarios, some kind of what if we do this, what will happen in terms of moving us along a path to achieve our goals. And so that was the main focus of our second workshop. And so I'll outline those in a couple of minutes. So now we're in this sort of path towards the end of the process in which we want to report out what we heard from these community workshops and began to pull together all of these ideas for presentation in a regional summit, one big meeting where we're inviting leaders and citizens from all over the region to attend. And that's on our agenda today as well, to talk a little bit about the tribe's role in that regional summit, where that may be held, and what's the right timing for it, and that sort of thing. We're also very concerned about what happens to the regional vision after our team goes away. This is always a problem when you have a consulting team working on a project, there's always the danger of creating a real fat report that sits on a shelf, and we certainly don't want that to happen. After all this energy, time, and devotion that people in the region have spent on this, we want to make sure that there's some coalition or some entity in place to be advocates, to be champions of the vision, take it forward, work with the existing institutions in the region, or perhaps create some new ones in order to take the vision forward. And so those are the elements on our agenda today. Are there any questions that I can answer about the process, its organization, what we've done so far?
I'm not sure about just the process, Ben. I know that, and I want to thank the staff that was able to come in again today. I think this is, excuse me, probably the 3rd meeting some of you have sat in, and we've done some one-on-one with them. You know, the interest I think the tribe has in this effort is that, you know, we have land now in 6 of the 7 counties, counting Macon County, where we've acquired land over there. And so as things develop around us, and we need to be involved in that and how it's going to affect our membership that live in the counties and how it's going to affect land ownership that we have in those counties, and also the things and the economic impacts that this tribe has in this region, from employment opportunities through the casino operations to even our own land use issues that we have, from resource management, cultural values that affect Western North Carolina. And so those things, and as Ben has identified in his team, and of course we've had 2 or 3 meetings with the chief, we understand what our role is, we believe, in this region. And the tribe is a regional player for many of the various things that are going on. And whether that's weighing in on transportation needs, or whether that's certainly making sure our cultural resources and those things are taken care of, our health and medical staff with our members being in 5 counties, and we know how rural we are, there may be opportunities there for the health and medical to assist with some of the county needs that are out there that could be a diversification of what we do and an economic value back to the tribe, particularly with, again, the transportation needs of Graham and Cherokee County. Those 2 particularly have been looked at in this process, and those are both areas that we have a huge tribal population. And so from an economic development standpoint, housing, employment opportunities, I think we appreciate being identified on the early parts of this endeavor, that we want to have our issues heard and our concerns heard as much as we possibly can. The tribe is our own autonomous unit. We have issues and information here that necessarily we've talked to Ben and his team that we will not disclose to them. But there are other issues and information that we can disclose that will help other counties in the way they're planning, that's going to affect our people. And I think the converse is the same, that they're sharing information with us from opportunities and demographics that will help us better plan for our own people in those counties. So I just wanted to say that briefly, Ben, but certainly I think we're ready to get into your meat of your presentation.
Great, thank you. Well, and thank you for that. And of course, we appreciate the cooperation that you especially have given us from the very beginning. You've been involved in this process from just about from day one, and it's an unusual commitment given your schedule and all your other responsibilities, and we really appreciate that. And then calling in the key staff folks on a regular basis for them to help us understand the issues related to the tribe and the potential contributions and cooperation and partnerships that might result from this whole process. So let me just go over. Each of you have one of these packet of handouts, and this essentially were the handouts that were the topics of discussion in the 7 county workshops that we've been doing. So I also want to make sure we're going to run through these relatively quickly and just make sure that we're in concert with tribal concerns, because almost all of these are not only specific to this region, but all fall under categories in which y'all are responsible for, and that you've helped educate us about over the last few months. First of all, the subject of the first workshop was the identification and confirmation of these provisional goals. We established 5 pillars as kind of pillars of the foundation for the regional vision, and then there were under those 5 pillars were a total of 9 of these principal concerns. I don't think any of these 9 concerns are going to be a surprise to anyone who's had any leadership role in the region. These are the kinds of things that keep bubbling up to the surface. And so let's just very quickly go through these pillars and the concerns under the place we're given. That is the natural and cultural resources that are part of this region's identity. There's been in the interviews and in the small group sessions that we undertook, there's almost unanimous concern for the protection and enhancement of these natural and cultural resources. No one is arguing for any program or policy that undercuts the gift of our mountains and rivers and our cultural resources in the region. And of course, the tribe's role in that is enormous. While there's no Russ Townsend in the counties responsible specifically for cultural and historical heritage, the help that Russ and others in this group have been provided for us to help us better understand what we all share in this region in terms of the cultural heritage, both the Native American and the white settler heritage. The places we make in terms of the built environment, this is a big concern. The way we organize ourselves in settlement patterns, the way we build neighborhoods, the way we supply water and sewer to places, all of those have a long-term impact on the way, the look and the feel of our region and the kinds of experiences that citizens have and the ways we connect with one another in terms of our workplace environments and our residences and the opportunities we make for commercial investment. The economy we need obviously is something that is the top of everybody's agenda. We're in an era now where almost every kind of policy has to be justified through its contribution to the long-term economic development of a region, of a county, and of a town. And certainly the tribe with this enterprise section has been vigorous in looking for economic development opportunities to advance the long-term goals of the tribe. Under economy we need, we separated into economic development, classic economic development of attracting, keeping, and growing businesses. Jobs themselves looked at from the standpoint of citizens that need the jobs. There's a strong interest in some kind of regional identity and marketing purposes. That subject just keeps coming up when we talk to regional economic development directors and others about the advantages of marketing the entire region, including the tribal lands, as an entity. But we're 3,000 square miles with less than 200,000 population. That's not even the population of a medium-sized town in America, and that puts us at a disadvantage when it comes to competing against other, especially metropolitan areas, for the kind of investment that's required to achieve our goals. Infrastructure, obviously, water, sewer, all those things are important to building the economic development potential of the region. Add to that broadband. And every single conversation that we've had in the counties, someone has brought up broadband, and so it's bubbled to near or at the top of the list of things to be concerned about. The tribe, of course, is a partner in the creation of broadband, high-speed internet access in the region. We're looking. Everybody wants to look for ways to extend that access to the middle mile and the last mile in the region, so that we can take advantage of the kind of entrepreneurial, remote working capacities of people who may move to this area to work. We know that's high on the tribe's agenda as well as the county's agendas as well. The ways we get around. There's no Barrack Myers in each one of the counties that's concerned only about transportation issues, and so we have to lean on Barrack to help us a lot with the connections between this region and the feds and the state. That we're part of the regular business activities of the tribe. We want to build that level of sophistication in on a regional basis as well. And everyone knows that the funding that made the opt-in process possible comes from the transportation segment of the Federal Highways Administration and the NCDOT in order to establish some kind of foundation for long-term decision-making regarding highways, roads, streets and throughout the region. So that's the transportation is a very important part. And then lastly, and very important, is the quality of life aspects. We know the tribe has been at the forefront of identifying social, mental, and physical health needs of their members, over the region. Where the other counties, the counties in the region now are in the process of trying to accomplish the same sort of thing, trying to understand better the gap between the physical and social needs of the populations and the capacities for fulfilling those needs. And as Trina has already mentioned, there may be some opportunities for some new partnerships and new ways of approaching relationships between the tribal expertise in these areas and the needs in the counties. So that's essentially the goals. Are there any questions about these goals? They come up in every discussion about the long-term hopes of the regions, long-term concerns and issues of the region. As long as I've been in the region, we've had discussions, these same goals have come up. Are there any questions about this? Anything we're missing here from a tribal standpoint that's important to have under consideration?
Russ?
Comment. I'm not sure that anything's being missed, but I was thinking about your comments about regional identity. And I do see that that's something that the region lacks, but I don't think it's something the region needs to lack. I think if you look at history, going back to the creation of the United States of America, you have what Will Holland Thomas said was a strong union between the Cherokees and the Highlanders. And in the Civil War, he created his Confederate Legion, and the Thomas Legion was known as the Legion of Cherokees and Highlanders. And there have been a lot of issues in history where land speculators and crooked individuals have taken advantage of people, and there hasn't always been a wonderful relationship between the communities. When the logging industry started here after World War I or right before to it, everybody was kind of at each other's throat for those land rights, and it was not a good place. But if you look historically at this region of southwestern North Carolina, I think you see that when good things happen, whether it was resistance to Cherokee removal, whether it was protecting their lands during the Civil War, or industrializing in the 20th century, where things have worked best, it's when there has been a recognized union between Cherokees and Highlanders. Whether we want to call those Highlanders Euro-Americans or settlers or whatever we want to call them, Will Holland Thomas called them the Highlanders, and when we've worked together, we've done exceptionally well in the region. And I think that's ultimately the identity these 200,000 people or so need to really draw on, because it's always been an interaction sphere between the Cherokees and the Southern Appalachian people who lived in this region that have built the good things that we have today. So I just thought I'd throw that out. I don't know if you heard anything like that at your meetings, but
I think that perspective of and the historical basis for that perspective is exactly the story that has to be told. I think it's first of all, it's a spectacular story in terms of its drama and its far-reaching implications, and it's not. I don't think it's a story that's completely told. I think that what has happened is that each sort of, and this happens certainly in every region where there are silos of historical perspective in which people develop their own ethnic or particular orientation and build a history and a mythology and a sort of a story of their history around that, but they don't integrate that story with the larger story of the way that the different populations have reacted, sometimes against one another and sometimes together in union. And so I think that seems to me precisely the kind of story that people want to get at when they talk about some kind of identity for the region and the marketing. And maybe, Stacy, do you want to say something about work that's going on now that reflects that?
Yeah.
Stacy's been working with the Cherokee Preservation Foundation and Macon County and other places on some of these kinds of goals to build a closer relationship in these kind of parallel histories.
Yeah, and Russ, you may know some of the work that's going on. Mostly the work is handled through Macon County and the Land Trust for the Little Tennessee. And of course there's the Hall Mountain planning that's going on around the Hall Mountain tract and the Cowie Mound, but we're also through a grant through the Cherokee Preservation Foundation expanding a look at the area between Cowie and Quasi and doing a couple of focus area around the mound in Cowie and a focus area around the area around the mound in town around the Quasi. And the goal of that is to do exactly what you're talking about, trying to bring together those two identities. I think it may have been spurred by a comment when we were having the workshop on the use for Cowie School. You know, we've got the Cowie School there that the county has designated as a heritage center that we would like to be sort of the clearinghouse for the cultural and heritage and history of the valley. But I remember when Russ, you may have been there with Joe High when Joe High was at our meeting back in 2010. You know, he made the comment, we had a lot of people talking about, well, we'll have the settler history over here, we'll have removal over here, we'll have pre-contact over here. And Joe High said, you know, it's been over 200 years. He said a lot of that history is the same. A lot of the stuff that your families do is stuff that we taught your families to do. And a lot of what we do are things that we learned after contact, and he said it's time to talk about it like that. So I think that's along the lines of what you're talking about. And hopefully that project and the Quasi to Cowie corridor can be something that's a good, solid, on-the-ground project that'll be a model for that kind of thing through the region.
Any other comments from the group? Go ahead, Trina, please.
Ben, under pillar number 1, it talks about water quality, but I don't see anything on there in regards to air quality. And I guess coming from the medical, we see a lot of asthma, allergens, COPD, and so, you know, that's something, area that I'm kind of concerned with.
It's a great comment, Trina. Thank you for that. Well, and we'll just add that. I think that's just an omission, not being fully, aware generally of that. But when we start talking about these issues that people confront, definitely the air quality issues.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? This exchange with Russell and Stacy, I think that's a really good example. I think of this of the conversation that's bubbling up with in terms of a regional identity, and I think we're going to carry that on. And it sounds like we're going to need Russ to help us set some of the context for that.
Yeah. Now let me add a little bit to that comment. We're definitely going to be
good. I can hear you.
Dependent on Russ and other folks to help us tell that part of the story in the valley over there, because we've got a lot of people that there's a lot of research and a lot of knowledge about the story between the 1830s up to now, but we don't, the story before then, we're going to depend a lot on you all for telling that story.
I just want to make a comment or two, maybe build on what Russ says. You know, as I was approached about this project and we're looking at the 9 pillars of things to discuss, I mean, we look internally to the things we're trying to create for our membership and certainly for our lands and certainly for our opportunities. And if you look beyond that to the region, we have many of our enrolled members do not live on trust property. So they're out there in the counties that are being impacted by decisions that commissions are making or county administrators are making. We look at opportunities for employment that enrolled members that live in the region are able to take advantage of by what the tribe is creating in those areas. And so if you look at how connected we are with things that are going on around us, it was just a natural fit. And you know, from housing again to water quality, air quality, to transportation issues. So it was, you know, it just seemed to be that you know, we can't operate in a silo. And I know the tribe many years past and has you know, taken some opinions in that direction, but we have to branch out across our boundaries to our neighbors. And I know that over the course of the chief and I's administration, we have great relationships with Swain County and Jackson County, Graham County, Cherokee County, the lands that are areas that have lands of ours that are immediately impacted. But as we see how we've grown and interact in those areas and how they're branching beyond that, we have to have this ability to sit and talk regionally. And so it's been a good timing, I think, for the tribe to be acting as a participant. So I just wanted to put that on the table.
That's another important point. And I mean, in fact, I would argue that so far the tribe is the only partner in the region that has been in many ways forced to have that kind of regional perspective, given the holdings that you have and the populations that you have that are tribal members throughout the entire region. There's no other entity that has that kind of perspective, you know, in terms of its economy, in terms of its social interest and its obligations to its members. So it puts you in a special place, and certainly there's no one who has a larger investment or responsibility in terms of its employees and tribal members than the tribe. So it's a big deal, which is another reason we're grateful for being here today. So let's turn very quickly at ways we tested some potential progress towards these goals in the second round of workshops that are going on right now, and that's the handout that says scenarios at a glance here. So the one way for us to test what might be potential strategies for enacting a regional vision is to imagine different scenarios going forth. What if we do this? What if we do this? What if we do this? What will happen as a result of that? And the differentiation between these three scenarios that we are imagining have to do with the degree of management, investment, rulemaking that the governments, the populations, and the governments in the region are willing to, what appetite do they have for increased management, increased regulations, increased investment in the region. And so this is what we wanted to know. We went out to these community workshops. And you'll see that we described what research tells us will happen if we do these certain things. And so scenario A is basically just doing is business as usual, staying the course, doing what we're doing already. And you can see as you go down these categories here, there's sort of that same kind of incremental movement towards the goals, but many of the goals cannot be achieved by just continue doing what people are doing now. A lot of the problems we have, a lot of the kind of stalling in different directions have to do with the lack of a more progressive management, investment, rulemaking. Scenario B is just sort of a moderate improvement in terms of more targeted improvement in terms of investment, policy making. And scenario 3 is a much more robust version of that same sort of thing. So as you move through the scenarios, you end up with maybe a more commitment of money and resources, greater degree of management, better organization, putting together some of these institutions that are overlapping and doing the same sort of things, organizing them more on a regional and local basis, and also having more rules. Now we live in a region where rules are not really very popular. Regulations not on the top priority list of anyone. As a matter of fact, we heard loudly and clearly that you have to justify. If you want new regulations to do anything, there better be a strong justification for enacting them. There better be a demonstration of the return on the investment for the kind of resources that are put in, and there better be a good reason for those kind of rules. They have to advance us towards those goals. And so we heard that loud and clear. And so that kind of perspective jives now with the sort of business attitude that's permeating our state government and to a certain extent the government, the federal government, as well as that everybody's talking about return on investment. So we recognize that as we consider possible degrees of increase. Degrees of increase in these levels of investment, rulemaking, policy making, that sort of thing, that we have to be able to demonstrate they're going to get us. They're going to get us somewhere. They're going to get us towards these goals. As you look through these scenarios at a glance, you'll notice a couple things that we haven't talked about yet. One is the interest of rail. That's bubbled up in. Is this up on the screen? Yeah.
We wanted the folks at home to be able to see.
Oh, great.
From the scenarios.
Oh, great. That's great. Sure. You bet. And of course, all of these handouts are available on our website as well. So if people at home wanted to check these out, they can go to our website, which is www.Opt-InSWNC.org. Opt-InSWNC.org. All these handouts are available. You can download them as PDFs on our website. So as you look through here, there are a few things that are that have bubbled up in our conversations. Rail being one of those. There's a stronger interest than we anticipated in reconfiguring some of those historical rail connections in the region. We know the tribe has been active in that discussion already, and we're hearing a lot from Cherokee County, especially about better connections. And there's now an NCDOT contract out to a consulting firm that is investigating the connecting at least the Andrews and Murphy rail line there that's in use, and there's talk about a potential long-range goal of reconnecting the entire rail connection all the way from the eastern, from Asheville all the way out to Cherokee County and even down towards Atlanta. That's a really big long-term project, but given the potential for economic development in the long run, that might help in terms of tourism development, in terms of supporting the tribal investments in both the town of Cherokee and in the Murphy area. That the rail might be one of the things to be considering, and so that's a discussion we want to continue up. Housing is also something that we know that's bubbling up. There's been a lot of complaints about not only affordable housing, but decent housing. Housing that just that's not at the most, the affordable housing now in the region, for the most part, is housing housing of the last resort. Maybe dilapidated, run-down housing that most people would not want to live in if they had a choice. And so there's been a lot of enthusiasm for a discussion about increasing the range of housing choices in the region. And we know this is a big deal in the tribe. You all have already faced the workforce housing issue related to casino workers and others who are moving back into the boundary to increase the range of housing that are available there. I think what you all have learned in many ways is going to help us better understand some of the potential for the region as a whole. And that's a discussion that everybody wants to get into. And as you move through these scenarios, then as you provide more investment, more rulemaking, more incentives, then the movement towards the potential opens up for a larger range of housing. Yes, sir.
Ben, with respect to incentives, I think we've seen some entrepreneurialism develop in the region, both in terms of tourism, things like rafting and mountain biking, things like that. These kinds of businesses seem to be picking up. Some brewery business, some things associated with the rails. When you talk about incentives, I think I see in scenario B and C, incentivizing entrepreneurialism is very important. What are the kinds of incentives that the 7 Southwest counties can offer without a state legislative vote? Are there things the counties can do, can afford to do, to really incentivize this type of business development?
That's a great question. I'm going to ask Bill Tennell to talk a little bit about. Bill is a founding principal in a planning and consulting organization that doesn't work all over the world, and his experiences in counties and towns that have found ways to achieve some of these goals by the way that they've organized neighborhoods, downtowns, incentivized more compact, walkable, more connected environments may be a key to the kinds of discussions we're going to have in the future. So, Bill, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Thanks, Ben. Good question, Russ. It's one of the ones we've been chewing on, and it was really an interesting question when we had our workshops in Cherokee County and in Graham County, which were both week-long sessions. Larry attended, I think, some of both of them. And as Ben said, I think a lot of it focuses, as have many of these conversations, on the towns themselves as places where, that kind of activity should be focused. And if there is a coordinated will to make some of those things happen, of course, in many cases, rafting and trails and other kinds of recreational opportunities cross multiple boundaries. So it does require cooperation. I think this regional discussion has helped for some of those kinds of cooperative efforts to get some exposure and some discussion, maybe in a way that they haven't otherwise. I think especially in Cherokee County, where there is a lot of excitement about sort of a whole recreational corridor that might run in concert with a rail improvement that could help the transportation aspect of that, but also involving the river and maybe regional bike trails that would connect multiple towns and destinations. That if the counties themselves understand that those are goals that multiple stakeholders have in common, I think it helps them make those kinds of plans and prioritize their investments so that those things can happen. I think in the towns, one of the key things that we've seen in discussion is that there isn't always a real agreement on what the target is. Who is the market that we're trying to attract? Graham County obviously has a certain emphasis on motor sport tourism that has in some cases kind of eclipsed attention to some of the other aspects. So once again, if the towns think of themselves as places that want to make themselves attractive to those markets, that helps them think about what is that market looking for, not just in terms of products, but they're looking for a certain experience. So in terms of the way we build things, the way that we organize things, has been said to make them more walkable, maybe less automobile intensive, less, many people have said we don't want to be fill in the blank, Gatlinburg or other places, and so I think it's helpful to just let those kind of areas of consensus, bubble up as we've had these workshops.
Of course, the largest incentives for all kinds of development is water and sewer and transportation. So we're already providing incentives for certain kinds of development by how we designate how we make policies regarding where we're going to put the roads and where we're going to put water and sewer. So, Barrick, what's your experience in that territory?
As we're moving forward with transportation issues you can see just pretty much throughout the United States has been more of a move to more of these walkable, more livable communities where it's not necessary. Basically, you kind of try to get your parking out from areas and then have systems set up where people could walk, so that you make it more of a destination. So all your stuff is within walking distance, and people move from point A to point B. Where a lot of the areas, especially in this part, it's not really set up that way. A lot of your downtowns weren't necessarily set up that way. It was almost more of, we want to get you in a car, and then you'll stop here at this store, and we'll park in front of it. We'll go in, do a little shopping, then we'll get out and get in our car and go from here to here. And so what you're seeing is more people, and like I said, when you try to go after certain demographics of people, of being able to park, being able to bike, things of that nature that people are more looking for. I think one of the biggest things around here you've been is we've got one of the most beautiful areas in the world, tons of trails and tons of stuff like that. It's almost like it's never put out there to actually market that as to bringing people here that want to do more outdoors type of activities. And one thing is trying to build, right now, trying to maneuver a bicycle through downtown Cherokee or the business district, you're taking your life in your own hands. I mean, really, because there's just no designated areas for people to actually do that activity where they feel safe. So you're seeing a lot of that development. Asheville started doing that, where they're starting to try to incorporate in bike lanes and things of that nature and I think that's kind of your incentivizing stuff, is to say, okay, yeah, here's the incentive for coming to Cherokee or coming to Robbinsville or Murphy, is if you want to go somewhere and you want to stay, say, over at the Hampton Inn, and then you and your wife and kids want to take your bikes out, and that's how you want to see the town. Here's your incentive, because we've built the safe areas for you to do that, where you don't feel unsafe to actually get out and do that type of activity. Or you've got areas that are basically built for pedestrians. So you see Western Carolina right now is totally, if you look at the way, when I went to school there, when my brother went to school there, totally different look now. They've basically taken out the roads throughout the middle of campus and trying to make, even today, more changes to moving your parking outside, and all the interior is more of pedestrian type campus, so that students can get from point A to point B by walking, and they feel safe. They're having to worry about motorists coming through the downtown or the Main Street area of the campus. And I think you're starting to see more and more of that. It's an idea that other towns are trying to incorporate. The issues we have, obviously, in a lot of our areas right now is, okay, it's great, we want to do this, but how do we fit it in? Because the way we've already built our towns and the way we build our streets, we've kind of really put ourselves in a tight spot of saying, how do we get these new facilities in? How are we going to run, bike lanes and everything through downtown Silver or downtown Bryson City or even downtown Cherokee here with the way that the streets are set up now? And that's kind of the challenges that we're running into. But you can see more and more, Biltmore Park's a prime example of something that they build over in Asheville that's very much just a neighborhood that's there. You've got hotels, you've got restaurants, you've got places to stay, there's houses all around it where people kind of go there, and then you can still do a lot of your different shopping, and a lot of your stuff. There's a movie theater there, things like that, where it's all one big neighborhood. It's not a big strip mall or anything like that. We're talking about doing another one, I think, over in East Asheville, back towards Swannanoa. So you're seeing more and pushes of that in some of the urbanized areas, and a push for people that, instead of the suburb living, more people are wanting to try to move back into the interiors of. And I think that's where you attract some of your different demographics, is providing that housing more in the downtown areas and things like that in these towns, because a lot of the younger people are looking at it as like, well, you know what, man, I really don't want to have that 2,500 square foot house in this big 2-3 acres of yards to maintain and all this. I'd like to be a place where we can have one car. We can be right here downtown, you know, where we can get there with public transportation, whether it's transit, whether we want to get out and ride our bike, and I could ride my bike to work or whatever. I think that's more of a push of where you're seeing some of where that demographic's changing and the people that are in this new age group of how they're seeing. So there was a big push, I guess, you know, the baby boomers and everything, there was a big push to everybody moving out of the cities, out of the towns. Everybody's getting their 3 acres and their big houses, and now you're seeing a lot more people wanting to move back into the areas and not have to travel as much, like I said, travel as much by car. And I think that's the challenges we have in this area, transportation-wise, is how do we connect all these neighborhoods with some sort of public transportation where people aren't having to drive everywhere they go.
It's a problem that's faced by communities all over the country, for sure. We have the advantage, I mean, one more aspect of the historical experience of this region. There's small towns that had this kind of compact development. So there's a model that's already in place for 150-year-old towns in our region, in which that kind of compact, walkable, mixed-use development, where people didn't have to rely on automobiles to get around. That model already exists. Thanks, Beric, for helping us out with that. And I think that you're right on target with the concerns of a lot of the transportation-oriented folks that we've talked to in the region. Of course, you're a little ahead of the game on some of that already, because you're beginning to face that here, especially with transit-oriented stuff in the boundary and in other trust lands.
Can I add something there real quick?
You bet. Sure. Would you come on up here?
Beric, I wish that you could have been in attendance at some of the sessions we had, because all of what you just described was talked about as being important to get that more diverse population here and to keep a younger person, whether they live here already or whether we want to bring them from elsewhere. One of the things that we did in Cherokee, which I shared with Larry, and it's I hope available. It's actually on our website. Is some of the work that was done on property adjoining the casino property, Murphy, as just a what if. What if some of that development were formatted along the lines of what you were talking about, as more of a village scale walkable environment as opposed to highway oriented, separate pad sites. So we hope that those examples can kind of fuel that discussion. And if that's something people would like to see, then as we talk about this level of regulation and balancing what those priorities are, that may be one of the targets that we try to look towards.
Yeah, and I think in Cherokee County, where the road and everything is going into that property, I think would be a great opportunity for that, because you're already going through part of what is pretty much a development that's there, where some of the landowners there had already sold off pockets for people to build homes that are in that area. And I think it's easier to sell, especially with those people that are there, to say, because some of them have that thought that, oh man, now there's going to be this big old ugly Walmart looking building over here, and there's going to be this and this, just all this stuff popping up everywhere, kind of up this roadway. Whereas if it still gets that neighborhood feel, it doesn't take away from why some of those people, because you have a lot of people, especially Cherokee County, where it's a lot of people that move there because, hey, I lived in Atlanta my entire life, and we moved here to get away from that, or we lived in Chattanooga and we moved here to get away from that. So anything you can do is a development like that, so it doesn't feel like they've lost that sense of that identity of why a lot of people come to this area is kind of small town USA. They don't want it to be this big development looking like the same old stuff you see in Marietta and Gwinnett's and places like that, to where you can really add an identity to it and those people can still have that feel that they're still in small town America. I think that's the thing that the Cherokee County could be a very, very good example of working together to actually accomplish that. You know, with the gaming facility being there, and then the other growth that goes with it, that show that this area can still maintain its small town Appalachian Highlands feel but can still grow and still bring jobs and bring people here and bring, you know, whatever else as far as economic development comes here.
One of the things that seemed to resonate, you know, with a lot of the folks we talked to was they realized that what's happening at that property, around that property, is kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity in terms of building something special, because that just, there's not been very many opportunities in this region to do that. And so it does really give a chance to do a demonstration of those ideas that maybe can get some traction and let people see what that option looks like, as opposed to sort of the commodity approach to development, which has been happening in so many other parts of Western Carolina.
Thanks, Bill. Just to quickly move to the next document, the indicators document, and we'll move to this quickly because I want to get to this latter part of this discussion as soon as we can. These indicators, you'll see here how we've identified some of the ways in which these indicators would demonstrate how to the extent to which you're getting towards these goals. So if you do the sort of things that Bill and Barrick are talking about in terms of compact, walkable development, concentrating infrastructure in town areas, supporting more cost-effective policy making, then you can see how these indicators will demonstrate some improvements as you move through scenario B and C. Now, we also, there's the other document that I wanted you to take a look at that was important for us during the workshop was the survey document here, that we realized that there's no way to achieve all of these goals, maximize each individual goal individually and without sacrificing something in one of the other goals. I mean, this is just sort of the story of life, that you can't concentrate everything on just focus on just one goal, because you're going to lose traction on the other goals as well. So in the bottom line, this entire discussion is going to end up being about trade-offs, about what do we want to do? What's this going to cost us to get to the goals? How far can we get to the goals? What kind of return on investment is going to make sense? How do we balance all the priorities of these goals together? And so we undertook this survey that was filled out and left on the tables at the workshops to get a feel for where people's priorities were and what the trade-offs were going to be. And I want to direct your attention especially to the last couple questions on the survey, which asked about some kind of regional entity to take the vision forward, and we're real interested in people's appetite for that. Should there be some kind of regional entity to do that? What should it be like? What it should be made up of? Private sector, public sector, governments, nonprofits, what kind of combination? So we'll report out the response to that, but that leads us right into this discussion about implementation issues. And I think many of you sitting around here have already dealt with this kind of issue, because you already have a regional perspective in Western North Carolina about the tribes' motivations and long-term goals. And so let's talk just for a brief here. I'd like to hear from you about if we recognize the need for some kind of advocacy position for institutions that currently exist or ones that can be put together at the end of this session, to what extent is the tribe's appetite for the level of partnership that you want to make. What's your feeling on that? And Larry, you may want to talk a little bit about, you've thought this through a little bit already, about where you are on this, and then I'd love to hear from Perry about what you might think the council needs to hear in order for the comfort level to get to a certain level to talk about innovative partnerships in the region to take this kind of regional vision forward.
Well, Ben, I think it's going to require some thought, I believe, from tribal leadership and tribal government to find the right mix. We certainly, with the lands and properties we own and our membership being throughout the region, we want to be a good partner. And when we go out to different meetings and opportunities to the counties and the commissions, that's some of our first statements. We're here to, cooperate. We're here to be, to hear how we can assist. We certainly look at our needs as any group would. We're going to look at our needs probably initially, and then see how the bigger picture will help us meet those needs. We have to, of course, our government has 14,000 members, that constituency. And we certainly want to make sure that however we step out, however we're involved in different organizations, or in this case, a new organization possibly, that we're continuing to serve the needs of those 14,000, as well as think broad enough, bring the other relationships into play that are going to enhance those 14,000, as well as the other folks in the counties. The old adage that the rising water raises all the ships, and that's very true. We don't want to lose focus on what our focus as a tribal government is. With that being said, the chief and I have had a couple of conversations, and I think you were privy to one a week or two ago, and we knew this issue was going to come up. There are, and I don't know maybe the answer to the question, but from other tribal governments throughout America, I don't know if there's a template or a model that someone's familiar with, that you're almost creating in some ways, you're creating an enterprise zone of sorts. You're creating a housing coalition of sorts. You're creating a transportation needs system of sorts from day one. And I know that with Russ, we've said that our history covers this region culturally, archaeologically, aesthetically. The things that have gotten the Cherokee people to this point have to be considered, and I think throughout the meetings that you've conducted and the comments I've heard, those concerns are being heard and incorporated throughout this process. We have to look at all these things in what I think is going to be the best context for the tribe. We're very, we're not naive enough to think that if the tribe were to in some way say, yeah, we'd love to be the mover and the shaker on this opportunity, there's going to be some cross-boundary issues, some jurisdictional issues, some other issues that are come into play pretty quickly. And we're not naive enough to think that those won't in some way raise their ugly heads, for lack of a better word. And we certainly don't want to create animosity or jealousy through this opportunity. And I think truly it is an opportunity that will enhance our tribal enrollment, the folks for different various things, housing, jobs, all those things we're talking about. My thought is, and I'm not sure, and maybe I just don't internally know enough about it, but it seems to me that the Council of Governments that is in place with the Southwest Commission functions on a certain level that gives them, I think, some authorities, some opportunities to interact, possibly some opportunities to plan, possibly some opportunities to go after grants to help with their organization. I really don't know how they work, but I think for a good cross-sectional opportunity, there almost has to be a coalition of some sort that, again, the tribe with the different various expertise that we have, we've proven we're more than willing to share that expertise. I think we're more than willing to share our successes and look at, again, as we've talked about, opportunities that we would have that would, of course, enhance what we're about, but I think also bring to bear on some of the capacity that the counties may not have at the present time. Help them build that capacity. All that being said, and just thinking through it, if there's opportunity for the 7 counties and the tribe to create a coalition, and almost it seems you have to, of course, you've got to create it as a nonprofit or a profit opportunity. I don't know enough about either one of those to speak as a preference, but you almost would have to create some a contribution of sorts that would go to support a staff person or a couple of folks that then take the finished document on behalf of the entire region, and that they would then look at the parts and pieces that over the course, and I think this is a 25-year period of planning, that they would be tasked in whatever manner that this, the coalition would give that person to seek, to put some of this into play. And that may be, bringing other partners into play, such as Federal Highway Administration through the transportation needs, or through the State Archaeological Office to enhance what we're doing there. I know Preservation Foundation here could and should have a role. We have a great incubator for small business, and I'm sure most of the counties do. But there's opportunities that someone, I think, could look with the parts that are in place that would come together that could enhance the final plan. And each one, again, I'm just throwing out a number. If each entity contributed $10,000 per annum for the effort, you've got a staffer and you've got probably some assistance there for someone. And then you've got a group that holds that person to task. That person would be would have to be very astute in a lot of areas, I think. Not suggesting anyone or along that line, but they would have to know the state government opportunities, the federal government opportunities, the county nuances, those type things, and be very astute politically on things that may affect Cherokee, necessarily may not affect Haywood County, and vice versa, for an example. That's sort of what my personal look at this is to implementation. The tribe has a lot of capacity. The tribe has a lot of resources. If we look at how we're using those resources, mainly, and rightly so, from our budgetary process to our ordinances and all that, it's for the benefit of Indian people, our people, normally on Indian property. But that doesn't keep us from not seeing a bigger picture, being involved in that bigger picture in some way, that we have a seat at the table and we have expertise we can bring to the table, so to speak, on our behalf. So those are just some comments, I guess, or just thoughts that, knowing that the question is going to be asked today, but I think reasonably, politically, financially, all those things have to come to bear that we're going to be able to make this thing successful for all of us. Perry, you have any comments on, I know that, we've tried to get the council involved, and we thank Perry for being here today. There's other meetings occurring and different things, but certainly we've asked the council to be involved, and I think any appropriation of dollars has to come through them, and we certainly would want them to support the effort at the end of the day. Perry.
Thank you, Vice Chief. And this is an interesting discussion. It was very, very broad. This is the first meeting I've been to other than the presentation where we talked about things, and each one of these subjects that were discussed today are huge, huge challenges. Right here, right now, our goals, lots of times as a tribe, or they are as a tribe, they're different. Right now we're on Cherokee land that's entrusted to the federal government. It's a lot different than the counties and the state and this. We're separate. Most of our people, we talk about housing, we talk about roads, they're going to come back here. We focus on those issues that are for our people. You talked about roads a while ago and bicycle. Well, bicycle paths. You can't go to Big Cove now. You can try to go around Stony Curve with a bicycle, you're going to get knocked off. You try to walk around Stony Curve, you get knocked off. So my focus has been, and will be, more on what's happening right here. Internet infrastructure. You all were talking about that and all the smart home technology and everything that we do. If you want to go to TripAdvisor and rate your trip here, and you go up there to Stony Curve, or you go up there to Mingo Falls or wherever, you can't do it in a lot of places right in those locations. You got to wait till you find a place where you have that connection, that connection. So my goals would be more geared toward bringing those type of services, the infrastructure services, to our people, whether it's transportation, whether it's whatever it is, whether it's water, whether it's sewer, whether it's developable land, how our land usage, and blocking views. Well, we only have a limited number of acres here. I'm sorry, we're going to block people's views at some time, but you don't want that as a whole. And we can be partners with that idea. But right now, with the limited land base that we have for the number of people that we serve, we have to move into these areas to provide for our people, and bring roads, and bring water, and bring sewer, and bring power, and bring whatever else we need to that area. Because we grow right now at a rate of, I don't know what's the number now, Larry, 200 or more? Yeah, more than that per year. I was looking at your survey questions here too. That first one, which is preferable to brand the region or market together. Well, we face that internally, and there's one, sometimes we put together a group to market as the tribe as a whole, but there are players within that. You might have the historical association say, well, our fish, we're not getting as much advertisement as you, those dollars you're spending on this person that could have been spent on my section. So, there are huge challenges in everything you say, in everything that you're asking here. Or do we continue to develop and compete for tourism business in county towns? That's going to be a natural thing. If they're not spending the dollar in Cherokee, they're spending it in Bryson, or spending it in Franklin, or spending it in Whittier, or wherever it is, Waynesville. We'd like to keep that here, and we would like our focus. And these are all challenges, and this I think we need a lot more discussion on this from where I sit. How important is it to create interest in towns that attract and keep young people? Well, that's important, but here in Cherokee, we try to keep our own people too, to create jobs and create these opportunities. So there are options where we can work with the surrounding towns and counties, but I think until we get to that level where we can provide the equivalent of what's out in other areas right now, I think that's what my position on it, though, Larry. And I think we focus here to a big extent, and we can't help, we will. We appreciate your ideas and your goals here. But anyway, thank you.
Well, we'd love to work with you, continue the conversation, work with you, figuring out ways where those areas of mutual interest to the tribe in particular, and that also serve the long-term regional interest as well. I don't think Larry says that he's not so naive to think that all of a sudden something can wage a magic wand to overcome all these things. But I don't think anybody in the region is so naive to think that the tribe is going to enter into any kind of relationship that does not serve the tribe.
That's true.
I think as an obligation.
And I think these other towns and places will feel the same way. They'll look at their own interest there.
That's what they made that plain to us in each county.
Yeah.
If we can't figure out a way to demonstrate how it serves each one of those counties and towns, the regional vision is going to take a long second wave.
That's it.
Yes, sir. Sir.
Well, there's some opportunities for the counties to, and again, these across the boundary efforts, I believe, could benefit both. We're looking at some land purchases, and we've looked at land into trust issues, expanding our trust properties for opportunities for our people to have homes or for us to create businesses. And of course, the spinoff from a business creation is employment, which can cross a boundary. And so I think the counties, if they, and we've had good responses from both Swain and Jackson on areas that we're looking to put into trust. They see the bigger picture, and thankfully they do. We certainly don't want to be adversarial. We know it comes out of the tax base on one side, but it goes into employment and housing, and that's economic development on the other side. And again, that quality of life, that someone has a nicer place to live or so, that from an employment standpoint. And I think the counties could also look at what's available to them from business incentives that may entice the tribe at some point to become an investor in some opportunity. We know that the broadband, those issues are out there, but these centers of information centers, if you will, I'm not sure the proper name, but those things have been discussed by this tribe. We would certainly hope that counties that, if we were to have the opportunity to invest in such a thing, would look again at what incentives come back to this tribe for being a good business partner. And we have the expertise at that high level that probably in the past we didn't have, but we have other opportunities, I think, that we could bring to bear. But the counties need to see, either through state legislation or their own opportunities of ordinance, to allow us to be successful if we were to go down that partnership route in some case. So again, helping our people, helping this tribe prosper, move forward, at the same time being a good neighbor in the region. But we need that same consideration, and we can't make those changes. We, the tribe, the counties can, or through state legislation can be done, or set-asides for economic zones or things that, a minority-owned business, 8A opportunities that we would have could be incentivized to bring things into those counties that necessarily wouldn't have to be on trust land, but would be owned by the tribe. But we need that taxation issue. We need all those things to be considered, just like the state of North Carolina would for, Honda or anyone else wanting to come in and build a plant. We would want that opportunity because we are moving toward, hopefully, a enterprise opportunity of creation that we will go after different types of government contracting and all those things that many tribes are doing. It helps diversify our economy. Our land base is such that, well, you've been around the region, tribal lands are pretty steep and pretty narrow valleys and not prone to getting the mountaintop cut off in a very cost-effective manner. But we could certainly look at opportunities through an 8A opportunity of creation of a contracting opportunity with buildable land. Cherokee County, Macon County, Haywood County still gives us tribal control. We still have that control to diversify our economy and use someone else's property in the meantime. All the return come back to the tribe. But we need incentives from those counties. Don't know how the conversations along that line have been or if they've occurred.
Not yet.
that helps us to, again, think beyond our borders.
And I think that y'all can help define that conversation. I mean, I think that's really what we're asking when we're talking about an implementation role. This is such an early stage of talking about how such a coalition might be put together and what strategies would work. And I think y'all are farther along the line of consideration of what the potential for that might be than the other counties. And so I think what we're really asking is it time to put something like this on the table, and we can't think at this stage of anyone better to put it on the table and kind of articulate what the concerns are.
And just working with the Southwestern Commission representative on the technical committee for transportation issues that we have, trying to get a couple folks, hopefully have a resolution maybe next council to try to get some people appointed as far as tribal leadership with the rest of, so that whenever they have the actual technical assistance meetings for transportation needs, there'll be the tribe will have their voting members, whether it's the chief and vice chief or chairwoman or whoever they deem to put on that. That'll be sitting there with whoever, the Jackson counties and the Swain counties and people like that. And I think moving forward, some sort of types of coalitions will work. Because I think on the transportation side of things, that's where the RPOs came about. Was, as you mentioned, 300,000, was it miles or square miles or whatever? But we've only got about 200,000 people. But yet we still have the same transportation issues here that other places in the state. So how do we come up with a voice that helps us fight to get funding for the transportation needs that are within this? And especially when you move off the boundary, the main boundary here, when you move out to the Snowbird community where the vice chief lives, they don't have the option but to be on state roads. I mean, that's what gets most of those people home. Cherokee County the same way. A lot of times state road will go all the way to the end, and then at the end is where the tribal property is, and that's where all of our housing is. But to get to there is state road that comes off another state road that comes off another state road. So I think partnering on certain situations obviously is going to benefit us as a whole, like some of the transportation issues, whether it's getting better roads coming through Graham County, better roads in Cherokee County or Swain and Jackson County, improvements to Highway 19, things like that. I think we can all jump on board with that. It's just whenever we look at the economic development side of things, we are one of the largest economic engines in Western North Carolina. We're right behind Mission Hospitals as the lead employer for Western North Carolina. So you can look, right now, even at the casino, we have, probably 80% of the workforce up there is actually non-enrolled people. So that means that we're hiring people from Jackson County, from Swain County, from Graham County, from Cherokee County, Macon County, places like that, Haywood County, that are coming over here to work and go to the jobs that that as a tribe have created for this area. We're getting ready to create another 700 jobs or something when we finish the Cherokee County casino, which if you just go by that, if you say 80% of those people are going to be non-enrolled people working there, you've created that amount more jobs for Cherokee County, which is a spot that for years has been, especially with this last downturn of the economy, in very bad shape, very high unemployment. Graham County's had very high unemployment for several years now, and we're doing our part just by that, of creating jobs that these people can hopefully feel, that gives them not only good income, they get good benefits out of it, but it also allows them to enhance their way of living, and maybe gets them to be able to, instead of living in this type of home, now they have a job which allows them to get a better home and things like that. So I think overall too, when you look at the 7 counties, probably the vast majority of our enrolled members that do not live on boundary property here or in Cherokee or Graham County, live in that 6-7 county service area that we provide. You know, I mean, you can go right off of here over in Camp Creek, Sunset Farms, and I can count about 30 people right off the bat, just on those two roads that are enrolled members that live there. So they having to travel those roads to get to either the hospital here, get to, you know, social services, get to whatever the needs are here that they have. Some of those people have chose to live out there. Some of those people have chose out of necessity because, like Perry said, we're having to deal with our own housing issues here and say, okay, now that most of our low-lying land here is gone, now how is it we're going to start divvying out some of this other land and be able to create housing? Because, like I said, here we have that unique situation that Jackson County's not providing the services to the people that we have to provide because the state of North Carolina provides those services. So we don't really have that option to fall back because we're our own nation here. We're having to look at providing services that counties and these towns don't even have to worry about providing because there's another entity out there that's providing those services for those people. Transportation needs, like you said, we have our own DOT here that provides road maintenance and the services here that's totally not reliant on the NCDOT, whereas Jackson counties, Swain counties, Graham counties, towns of Robbinsville, they've got the state that provides that. So Graham County's not having to provide their transportation services to their people in the way that we have to provide transportation services for our people here. So it puts us in a different perspective, but I think overall, I think we've done a great job at being the good neighbors that we are in just from job creation and how we do work with, you know, NCDOTs and with some of these counties and different. We've had our probably issues in the past, I'm sure, but you know, for the most part, I think we've done a great job of being that neighbor. And I think you can see through Southwest Commission and some of that there are certain avenues that allow us to work together as governments, with, you know, across the spectrum of this. There's going to be other areas where it gets a little more difficult because, you know, Bryson City's not going to probably want to shell out money trying to get people to come to Jackson County, or vice versa. So it's a matter of, yeah, we're all in this together and it's a great place that everybody should visit, but when it comes down to it, you know, they're still saying, okay, we got hotels here and we want people staying here. We're not going to try to spend our dollars so that people go to other places and not spend their money here. So it's a challenge when you look at some of that with the economic development side. But I think other issues, from social services to transportation to things like that, I think we can all come together with that, because we're all going to have to work together with the NCDOT and with some of the other entities, federal highways, to get the transportation needs addressed here, because of the fact, because we're not Charlotte, we're not Raleigh, we're not the Piedmont Triad. So a lot of times, as a lot of the people you probably talk to, a lot of people say, people in Raleigh think that North Carolina stops at Hickory, and there's not a lot of push to get a lot of development and roads and stuff back this way. And there's still a lot of those people, especially some of the elected officials in these counties and towns, that still have that same thought process to say that, you know, they don't listen to us down in Raleigh, and they don't want to hear our issues about what's going on here.
We've heard that for sure. Well, Larry, I know we've taken up a lot of time this afternoon. I appreciate it. Did you have something you wanted to add to that, to what Barrick was saying?
Not add to that. I know that you wanted to talk a little about the regional summit to wrap things up, and this may be a good time to do that. I know we probably all got some other things waiting on us, but
if we've got a few minutes, it'd be great to talk a little bit about that. Because
let's take a few minutes, talk about what your thoughts are on that, and we can certainly see how we bring something to bear. We'd love to have you do your summit here in Cherokee, if that's a possibility at the casino. So we'll throw that on the table, and then you can speak.
Well, great. Well, the idea of the summit is that we want to have sort of an end of the project event that's partly in celebration of all what we've been through over the last 15 months, and partly a meeting in which we affirm a lot of the things that are coming out of the report. We're planning on using some of those handheld voting machines to have a series of things to kind of confirm through voting on that. We think it's a good idea to feed people because we can get more people to show up if we feed them. And so we want people seated at tables more than in a theater type arrangement. And so we want a lot of people to come. And so when you put all of those issues together, the casino is probably here in Cherokee is probably the best, the most ideal place. The most all the video, the video capabilities, the in-place catering, and and used to serving big crowds and dealing with that. Parking's no issue. All those kinds of things, and plus the attraction of coming to the casino itself for some people will be a plus. And so we'd love to put that on the table for consideration, and we're interested in thinking about whether or not it should be a luncheon event or a dinner event, about having a guest speaker that might be Mark Meadows or the governor or a legislator, which we would definitely need some help from the tribe on attracting that kind of speaker. And then, of course, maybe some sponsorships or how we might organize it. We don't have a budget for food in our opt-in project, but we think there's maybe some sponsors might come forward for an event like this. So we're thinking about 300 people or so, and we're talking about trying to especially target groups, organizations that we've talked to over the period to sort of bring them in as partners, to make them responsible for, making sure one table is filled full of people who are interested in land trust issues, hospital and health issues, farming, agricultural issues, historic preservation stuff, that sort of thing. So we're going to count on 30 or 40 people who will promise us they'll bring 10 or so people for tables and get a population of around 300 people to be that kind of. How does that sound to you?
Well, it sounds good, and I think what you need is just a small planning committee here with the tribe. I'm going to suggest Lynn Harlan. She's wasn't able to join us today.
That's how people get on committees.
Absolutely.
Showing up.
And I'll be glad to help out, and I think probably Paxton from the chief's office.
Right.
And we can do some preliminary discussions with the casino folks. Paxton knows the folks up there, is why I suggest him. And then we can certainly, I know as you continue to go around to the counties and see, you're talking about sponsorships. Of course, we can look at pricing for food and using the venue, and that's basically your two big costs. You may have, in your budget, I'm assuming you have printing opportunity cost and those type of things. So we need to identify the hard costs that would be outside of that, and then let's see how we could put something together with the casino. But I think it'd be a good circle back around to where you started the day you came to my office and asked the tribe to participate, because we are a regional, as Paxton said, a very regional economic engine. A lot of the things that we do are, we've worked hard over the years to enhance our programs and our staff and those services we provide. And again, we're not adverse to sharing expertise and helping other folks succeed as well. So I think it's a good circle back to where and
in many ways it's symbolic. It's symbolic too of the partnership between the tribe and the counties. And
absolutely.
And so I think it's good all around. So I'd love to talk about it.
Let's make just that a working committee at this point, and we'll see how we can pull it together. Sure.
Sounds great.
All right.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for this time today. This is, as Bill and Stacy will tell you, this is having this kind of conversation with people who are already working in these areas is much more fruitful for us than spreading the net so wide that we can't get to this level of specificity. So we're very grateful for what you provided here, not only today but leading up to this event. So thank you again.
Yes.
You know, what I said a while ago was that our focus will be on taking care of our own here, and it always will be as far as housing, as far as education, as far as health care. But I think we can partner to a certain extent, depending on what that area is, whether it was brought up a while ago about air, clean water, whether it's our shared mountain heritage and culture and having the input into these areas. And I think that to a certain extent, even though what I said about branding, you're going to have this issue around here as far as with towns and with counties as to who gets those marketing dollars. But if it's a regional, just a regional type of marketing thing, I think that has potential to work. But each one of these different areas that were spoke on today, it's so broad there needs to be a lot more individual focus on every one of those and see where. But I think we do want to be good neighbors. Well, I know we do. You know, at the same time, benefit the entire region. So, but thank you for coming in today.
Yes, sir. And we'd love to have some advice from you and others on the council about reaching out and make sure that everybody's plugged into the conversation and answer any kind of questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Perry. Ben,
thank you, sir.
Thanks for the staff. Bill, Stacy, we appreciate you guys coming in today, and Ben, as always, good to see you.
Right.
Okay, Mike, you can take us off, buddy.